They didn't notice it at first. The way the room got quieter. The way things started feeling off. Like something vital had gone missing, but nobody could quite put their finger on what it was. Ideas stopped flowing. Laughter sounded forced. The timing was off. The vibe was strange, and the energy, it was dead. And then they realized, you were gone, but not just physically. Your presence was gone. And with that presence, everything they took for granted began to unravel. You see, chosen one, you never just filled space. You were the space. You brought life, stability, clarity, warmth, without ever needing applause. And now that you're no longer in the picture, they're feeling the impact in ways they can't even fully explain. Things don't move the same. People don't engage the same. The balance is off because the one who balanced it all, you, has left. They always underestimated your silence. They thought because you weren't loud, you weren't leading. But now they know. You were the anchor in disguise. You weren't the most aggressive voice, but you were the one people listened to when it mattered. You weren't demanding attention, but your energy commanded peace. And now that peace is gone, replaced by confusion, conflict, and a coldness that nobody can quite shake. It wasn't luck. It wasn't coincidence. It was you. You were the frequency that made things flow. When a chosen one walks into a room, they don't just enter it, they elevate it. Your energy shifts the atmosphere. People feel safer, more hopeful, more aligned. They might not know why, but they feel it. You've always been that quiet miracle, that invisible source of calm. The one who held space for others even while you were breaking on the inside. But here's the truth. You were never meant to hold it all together for people who didn't honor your presence. And sometimes, the only way God can show people your worth is by removing you. And that's exactly what happened. God separated you, pulled you away, took your light out of the room not to punish them, but to protect you. To remind you just how powerful your energy is. Because when you're too close to the dysfunction, you forget you were the solution all along. Now they're scrambling, trying to replace your spirit with strategy, trying to recreate your calm with control, trying to fill the void you left with noise, people, ideas, anything. But nothing's working, because what you carried can't be copied, can't be imitated, can't be summoned without divine favor. You were the alignment, the spiritual thermostat, the unshakable calm that stopped people from falling apart. And now that you're gone, they're breaking. Plans are failing. Relationships are cracking. Because your presence was the glue. And now, it's missing. And still, they won't say it. They won't admit it out loud. Pride won't let them. But in their quiet moments, in their confusion and their setbacks, they know. They feel the shift. They remember how much better everything was when you were around. You were never just there. You were holding it all together. But here's the part that hits different. You never even asked for recognition. You didn't want the spotlight. You just wanted to help, to heal, to love, to keep peace in a world that always felt at war. But peacekeepers get tired. Healers need healing too. And eventually, your spirit got tired of being taken for granted. So God moved you, elevated you, and in your absence, the truth was exposed. You weren't too emotional. You were deeply connected. You weren't too intense. You were spiritually sensitive. You weren't too much. You were too powerful for people still playing small. Chosen ones often stay in places too long because your heart is loyal. You see potential in people. You want to believe that if you just love harder, try more, give more, it'll change. But sometimes, your love becomes a cushion that allows others to stay stagnant. Sometimes, your loyalty turns into self-neglect, and God has to step in. Not because He's angry, but because He's calling you higher. You were never meant to shrink, never meant to fit into systems that don't value your soul. never meant to fix environments that break you in return. You are a mirror, chosen one. When you show up, you reflect truth. You bring clarity. And not everyone can handle what your light reveals. So they dismissed you, criticized you, misunderstood you, until you were gone. And now, everything is misaligned. Everything is falling apart. Not because you cursed them, but because they lost the blessing they never understood. But here's where it gets beautiful. You're finally starting to see it too. You're realizing you were never weak for walking away. You're not heartless for protecting your energy. You're just done being the silent strength behind people who never said thank you. You're stepping into a new season now. One where you don't have to carry everything. One where your presence is honored, not exploited. One where your absence will no longer be the only thing that makes people appreciate your value. Because the next time you show up, it'll be in rooms that deserve you, spaces that recognize you, relationships that match your energy. The shift you felt, that was real. It was spiritual. And it was necessary. Because sometimes, the most powerful move a chosen one can make is to walk away. Not out of anger, but out of divine obedience. And when you do, the world takes notice. Not because you raised your voice, but because your silence echoed louder than anything they've ever heard. So now they sit in rooms you once filled, wondering why it no longer feels right. They repeat conversations you once had, hoping to recapture that flow. They'd follow your old advice, trying to find their footing. But the truth is, it's not just what you said. It was how you said it. It was the frequency of your soul, aligned, anointed, and divine. And without that frequency, the station is silent. People think influence is volume. They think it's about the loudest voice in the room. But real influence is energetic. It's spiritual. It's felt, not forced. That's why people stared at you longer than they admitted. Why they listened even when you barely spoke. Why they were drawn to you, even if they never acknowledged it. They felt the pull. They felt the power. They just weren't ready to honor it. But now they're paying attention. Because things aren't the same. The light is dimmer. The peace is gone. The natural rhythm has turned into resistance. And all signs point to one truth. You were never just another person. You were the chosen one. And chosen ones don't just walk away. They get reassigned. By heaven. By calling. By destiny. It's hard for people to accept that your absence isn't about ego. It's about elevation. It's about growth. You didn't leave to prove a point. You left to protect your spirit. To reconnect with God. To remember who you are without constantly giving yourself away. And now that you're gone, the contrast is undeniable. Because your energy wasn't extra. It was essential. And they feel it now. You were the one who showed up early. The one who stayed late. The one who gave without expecting anything in return. The one who prayed for people behind their backs, even when they talked behind yours. And now they're seeing what you were really carrying. They used to think they were the glue, but now they realize they were just held together by your grace. They were standing on your prayers. They were stable because you were steady. It was your faith that kept things from falling. Your heart that covered their chaos. Your presence that made them feel like everything would be okay, even when it wasn't. But now you're in a different place. You've outgrown their expectations. You've detached from the dysfunction. And in your stillness, in your silence, you're becoming stronger. You see it now, don't you? How much you were holding. How much you were absorbing. How much of yourself you poured out just to keep others from drowning. But you were never created to be a life raft for people who refuse to learn how to swim. You were created to lead, not to be leaned on until you broke. And now, everything is shifting. Your absence is speaking. Your elevation is echoing. Your healing is making noise in places that once silenced you. Because chosen ones don't stay hidden forever. And those who took you for granted, they're remembering you now, not for what you did, but for what you carried. They're trying to fill your shoes and realizing your steps were guided. They're trying to copy your path and finding out that favor isn't transferable. Because here's the truth. You were chosen not just to bless others, but to be blessed yourself. And for too long, you made everyone else's life easier while yours was filled with pressure. But that's done now. You're no longer sacrificing your peace for their comfort. You're no longer dimming your light so others feel less insecure. You're no longer proving your worth to people who never saw it clearly. Because now you know. When you leave, everything shifts. Not because you're arrogant, but because you were anointed. And not everyone can handle that. Some people will never admit how much you meant to them until you're no longer accessible. Some will only realize you were the key once the door is locked. But that's not your burden to carry anymore. You've served. You've sacrificed. You've sown. And now it's your season to receive. Your energy is no longer a free resource for those who drain it. Your time is no longer up for grabs by people who waste it. Your light is no longer available to those who can't honor its source. This isn't ego. This is elevation. This is God pulling you into a higher dimension, where your presence is appreciated.